welcome to May 13th, 2020. Week 9 million of quarantine. But we are on to another subject here for COVID-19. Thank you guys for tuning in again this week. Keep doing what you're doing. Things are looking pretty good. So, what we're looking at this week is our Zooms today at 2 and 2:30, periods 1 through 3 at 2 o'clock. Same links as last week, and then periods 5 through 8 at 2:30. Same link as last week, but they're posted here. I also posted them, posted them in your email. This week's picture is of mid-April when Mr. Mead went out hunting and shot a wild turkey. So that's the turkey I got. I'm wearing what they call a ghillie suit, so you can kind of sit out in the open and be camouflaged. So it came in at about 10 yards away, so that's probably roughly 30 feet. It was a fun, good hunt. Remember, any new material that we find here will not be graded. It is optional, an enrichment material. You've all essentially passed on to 8th grade. All grades have been removed from 3rd trimester, and if you do notice any of yours still up, please let me know. I had to clear some things out of Power School, which I'm not sure why they're in there, but thank you, a couple of you, for mentioning that last week. Office hours will still continue Monday, Wednesday, 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. I'll try and be available on my computer to answer any questions right away for you guys. So keep continuing that. This week is misinformation. Okay. I think we've heard the term false news or fake news many, many times. Oftentimes maybe when it's not should be used, but anything that is bias, propaganda, which is basically a purposeful misinformation to try and confuse people. Companies spend billions of dollars a year misinforming us to get us to think a certain way. We know that the Russian government did that with multimedia during the 2016 election to try and convince people to do a certain thing. So, very informative for us to know which things are real and which things are fake. But false or inaccurate information, especially that in which deliberately intended to deceive us. Now think about this. What is the difference between misinformation and being incorrect? Right? So misinformation is information that is purposefully wrong, as opposed to, oops, we reported wrong and we rescind that and here's the right information, right? I mean, that's totally different. All right, so false information, a couple things that that are absurd, but people are believing through this whole COVID-19 thing is like 5G, right? That 5G networks are responsible for respiratory blah, 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 or, So it's, I don't get, as COVID-19 spreads, so does 5G. It's like, oh my gosh, it's an electronic thing versus a virus. Totally different things. But they cannot travel on radio waves. So there's that. And it's kind of like the anti-vaxxers logic that, okay, this works on 99.9%, but it's not 100%. So, if this bridge is 99% safe, I'm going to swim. I'm not going to go across the bridge because I could die from it, right? So there are complications with vaccines, and sometimes people respond to them a little bit differently, but the vast majority of people, when they get it, are completely fine and unharmed, right? So there's a lot of false logic even out there. Now, there's a myth, and there's a link here to corroborate this, but the myth that the coronavirus was created in a lab. It was worked on and researched in a lab like many viruses are, but it was not created in the lab. It was not some creation by Bill Gates to destroy humanity. Bill Gates and a lot of other rich people across the world have donated massive amounts of money because they felt like this was probably the thing that could hurt a lot of the world. We were unprepared for it, right? And that's where we talk about, especially in capitalist societies, people tend to step up to fill voids that they feel like the government aren't doing. NGOs, for example. I mean, Bill Gates has several NGOs where, one is he supplies computers to people who don't have them. I think one design was a hand crank computer, so people without electricity could still crank up the computer and learn how to do software and programming. But right now there's no scientific evidence to support the claim that it was created in a lab. So this is actually a virus that lived within animals, most likely a bat, that spread. There's a lot of information that says COVID-19 is no worse than the flu. So annual flu deaths or rate of death is 0.83 in people 65 or older. We know that this one is vastly different. 10.4% of the patients who get it who are 85 or 65 and older, 2%. So a vastly different death rate for COVID. Now we are seeing that COVID deaths, like we said, in a lot of states, if you die on the operating table or you die in the hospital and are tested positive for COVID, they're corroborating that to a COVID-19 death. I just saw it today. 81% of Linn County, so Cedar Rapids, 81% of Linn County COVID patients are from assisted care living. So that would be like nursing homes, which corroborates with the older you are, the more likely are you to get this virus. But at the same time, during flu season, we don't see that rapid death rate within assisted living. So the contagiousness of this flu is a lot worse, or this virus, excuse me. Myth, vaccines are harmful, right? We've had this discussion every single year, it seems like, around flu season. But the preventative measures that vaccines go through to help save people are a good thing. Herd immunity is very real. And, what happens when an adult or an adolescent gets a vaccine, it protects young children who, especially from like measles. I mean, for crying out loud, measles are more contagious than the virus that we're currently dealing with. But people don't get measles anymore because they get vaccines. Everyone that can gets it, and then these little kids don't die from the measles, which is a great thing, right? It gives them a chance to actually live a healthy life. So 419 million preventative illnesses helped avoid 936,000 deaths, greater than the population of Seattle, Washington, and then saved nearly $1.9 trillion in total social costs due to medical care, right? The vaccines are exponentially safe. I think every single peer-reviewed journal paper has proven that. There was one linked to autism a long time ago, which has been debunked, rebuked 9 billion times, and people still use it. And one of the things, like this pandemic came out, one of the researchers in the pandemic and the girl falsified research data in that pandemic video. And that's one of the reasons it's been widely discredited, like right away, is the doctor and researcher are discredited for their views in the medical world. And so one of the things that you have to be careful about. Social distancing won't help with COVID as another one, really being done to control us, to make us think a certain way. The government wants us to act and be sheep. That's not true. I mean, social distancing works. Not touching your face and eyes is a really big thing. But if you look at the math behind social distancing, so let's say I'm one person, I can infect 2.5 people a day is kind of the spreading rate of this thing. So in 30 days, that's 406 people that I may infect if I don't social distance. If I limit myself to 50% less exposure to people, I'm only going to infect 1.5 people in 5 days, which is still quite a lot. So in 30 days, I've infected 15 people. If I isolate myself and social distance so that I can't really infect majority of people, and I accidentally get too close several times, that's 0.625 people infected in 5 days, which in 30 I've only infected 2. Multiply that by 100 and some thousand people that are in our area, makes a big difference, right? And the reasoning behind social distancing is down there too. And of course, one of my favorite myths, that Russia set lions loose in the streets of Moscow to keep people quarantined. All of that would be an awesome way to keep people in their houses, and one that we wished we could say Putin did. Not true, right? So you can do some reverse Google imaging to come up and see where some of these images originated from, but that is not true, and even Putin does the face, right? So just remember, for your optional Canvas assignment, there are 2 videos and 2 articles, and then upload that to Mr. Mead's Canvas page. There is an assignment link there, which I did not forget this week. And you should be able to upload your 3 questions, which I've already created for you on a document. So 2 videos are here, PBS and nature video, and then 2 two articles that we'll kind of talk about in our meeting today, Plandemic and one from Nat Geo that I found that is actually information is kind of harmful. So 3 questions in today's world. How and why does information spread so easily? Misinformation. Why do you think people are so quick to believe false information about COVID-19? And then why do you think people want to spread misinformation in the first place? What do they get out of it? And why do they do it, right? Remember to stay informed. Keep using these links to stay informed and find good, accurate, relevant news. And then a follow-up from last week, quick video here on air pollution. Social distancing is definitely reducing many pollutants around the world. Research suggests pollution will return to pre-COVID levels as soon as people return to their formal routines, which kind of makes sense. It cleared up so quickly. And the fact is it'll probably come back very quickly if we don't change our habits. And one thing I want to ask you today, and remind me if I don't in our Zoom meetings, is, what's one big thing that you're going to take out of this? Like, what's one thing that you can change about yourself that can continue some of maybe the positive things that we've talked about last week? 4.2 million. Seems like we're slowing down a little bit. U.S. is 1.35 million infections. Talking with doctors in the area, it sounds like our recovery rate's quite good once you get into the hospital here. Most people don't need intubation, which is great. And then they found that sometimes early intubation is not a good thing. But a lot of putting people prone, actually on their stomachs during intubation, has worked really, really well. And so the U.S. and Iowa in particular has had a lot of time to see what's worked across the nation and what hasn't. They've learned a lot about the virus and how it reacts. And so we're doing really good with recoveries as far as that goes. 26,000 deaths, and then over 58,000 have recovered in New York. You take out some of those more populated areas, and the recovery rate's phenomenal. It's like 87%. So that's good news. And then total cases, total deaths, I think we're close to 80,000 last week. So Iowa 271, 12.5. Not a ton of numbers, like I said, this week. In Lynn County, they look at the numbers, and 81% of those were in assisted living, which we knew would be hit hard, right? And outside of Iowa, really, outside of metropolitan areas, the elderly and then people who work in close contact, like packing plants, other factory-type settings where you're right next to another person at a station, those are the most vulnerable, and those are where we're seeing people get infected. Otherwise, people are social distancing quite well, and even in Johnson County, I haven't seen people do the best job of it, but normal people and everyday routines don't seem to be getting COVID-19 like we thought maybe we would. So that's a good thing. Then final questions to take away from this. It's a historical event. What is your perspective going to be, and how are people going to interpret this, and what are you going to think of those interpretations, right? Can we balance free speech with an emphasis on fact? And then what responsibilities do we have to tell the truth, right? As citizens, as people of the world, people who can post whatever they want to the internet, who has that responsibility, right? And look at this, where fake news has the biggest exposure. We're sitting right there at number 4, excuse me. So we have a big responsibility to make in our freedoms to post and put up information on the internet. So with that, I will see you in a couple hours at 2 and 2:30. So stay classy, San Diego. Go Trojans.